The governor just issued his first vetoes of the year, killing a social media bill meant to uncover school shooting threats and blocking a plan to keep driverless trucks off the road. We told you the Democratic Governor Jared Polis was no fan of a bill that would have required social media companies to comply quickly with law enforcement warrants and proactively report some threats made online. That bill was backed by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and some students at Evergreen High School who thought something like that bill might have stopped the shooting there last September. The governor said he appreciates the motivation behind the bill, but that, quote, safety concerns must be balanced with free speech rights. The governor also blocked a bipartisan bill that would have required commercial vehicles to have a licensed driver on board, even if they had driverless technology. The governor said driver error is the leading cause of crashes and that driverless vehicles are innovation that's worth exploring. Our next conversation tonight is 7 years in the making. 2019, that was the last time that Lauren Boebert agreed to an extended interview here. At the time, she was a long-shot Republican primary challenger, promising to be even more pro-Trump than the Republican incumbent. Well, nowadays, President Trump is furious with Boebert for backing a renegade Republican Congressman, Thomas Massie. So Trump has turned on Boebert for the moment.
Now, here we are 7 years later, and Donald Trump is threatening to endorse a primary challenger against you. Life comes at you fast, huh?
It does, yes. A lot has changed over the years. My support for the president has not changed.
President Trump never just disagrees with people, right? He has to disagree and insult people.
Yes.
President Trump called you dumb. If one of my friends called me dumb, that would bother me. Did it bother you?
Well, I think it was low IQ.
He used the word dumb.
Did he use dumb?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that usually...
He said weak-minded and dumb.
Weak-minded, that's right. I mean, he could have thrown in there that I only have a GED, and that would have been okay and completely factual. But I'm still going to continue to support him and the promises he and I have both made on campaign trails to ensure that we keep those promises.
Why are you and other Republicans willing to take so much abuse from him?
Interesting. I don't see it as abuse. I think it's part of the DC nature. Nothing happens in DC without force.
You were pretty furious when President Trump vetoed the unanimous bill out of Congress to fund the Arkansas Valley Conduit Clean Drinking Water Project in your district.
Yes.
Is that ultimately going to get passed, going to get completed?
Yes, I promised that my work was not over when it comes to the Arkansas Valley Conduit Act. There was funding that I got approved earlier this year, right around the same time my bill was vetoed. But also this bill has been placed into the Agriculture Appropriations Bill, which I expect to pass sometime June or July. This is not something that the president can veto, and I am going to finish the Arkansas Valley Conduit Act.
What do you think of President Trump's $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund? He wants to give payouts to political allies who feel that they were persecuted or prosecuted under the Biden administration. Do you support that idea?
I do, actually. There have been many justice funds that have been created by Democrat and Republican presidents, and this is a fund I am supportive of.
Or how about somebody who beat up a cop on J6?
So I think that it has to be just. I think that there has to be a just reason.
Should they be off limits for this restitution?
I haven't read the fine print, but yeah, I don't think if you are wrong and actually engaged in a violent attack against a police officer or anyone for that matter, that you should get this. But also let's look at how they were sentenced, how they were treated in jail. That might qualify them for some portion of this fund.
Let me ask you somebody else. Tina Peters. Should Tina Peters get a check?
So this is a federal fund for federal charges.
Right, and she wasn't prosecuted by the feds, but
Correct.
You've got Vice President Vance out there saying that she's like the poster child for the fund. She wasn't prosecuted by the feds.
I think that Colorado should make it that right.
You were one of the very first people that I heard of that endorsed Ministry Leader Victor Marks for governor of Colorado. I want to ask you a question that I asked him yesterday, and I'm not sure he really had an answer prepared. This is not the question about how many people he's killed. That's not for you to answer. I want to ask you another question I asked Victor Marks. What qualifies him to be governor?
So I think right now in Colorado, we need a motivator who can then lead. Motivation has to be key in any of our Republican races, especially in a non-election year. I believe that Victor Marks will get qualified people in positions. It's an uphill battle regardless for Republicans in a statewide race in Colorado. And I am not disparaging any of the other candidates. I have endorsed Victor Marks, but that's not something that I've turned the volume way up on.
Colorado Republicans are about to elect a new chairperson. Leading candidate, maybe podcaster Joe Oltmann, who has called for the execution by hanging of the governor, the attorney general, secretary of state. He says that they are a, quote, synagogue of Satan Jews. Are you comfortable with Joe Oltmann leading your party?
This is not a race that I even want to get involved in. I'm so frustrated with the state party. I have been for the past couple of chairs that we've had on both sides of the party. Those comments are not something I would ever associate myself with, and I think that they should be condemned.
Is the state party cooked if he's in charge for the next 2 years?
I don't have a lot of optimism for the state party as a whole, regardless. We have got to start working on a local level and bring this back to our county parties and get them strong and strong enough that the state party is pretty much irrelevant.
When my conversation continues in a moment, Congresswoman Boebert reflects on going to Washington, not really knowing how it worked, what she's learned, and what she wishes she hadn't learned. The Trump administration wants legal visa holders waiting for a green card to go home and wait. Our Jaleesa Arizari explains a major shift in immigration policy.
Cars outside this law firm move fast, but inside it's the federal policy changes. Ian Rockstein says can be hard to keep up with.
When there's so much uncertainty, it's hard for us to tell our clients this is how your case is going to go. So yeah, that's how it's been.
But Rockstein says the latest immigration policy might be one of the most impactful. For decades, people who entered the U.S. legally, including spouses of U.S. citizens, students, workers, and refugees, have been able to apply for permanent residency without leaving the country with an adjustment of status application. On Friday, USCIS put out a memo saying those folks will now have to return to their birth country to apply for a green card at a U.S. embassy or consulate.
Which means families getting separated, just entirely blowing up people's lives. You're looking at quite possibly 2.5, 3 or more years before they can legally return to the U.S. and live here with their family.
Rockstein says this policy will impact about 100 of his clients, including those who already had their green card interview but were still waiting for a decision.
You're going to see, at least temporarily, a drop in people applying for lawful pathways to adjust their status.
Violetta Chapin, an associate dean and professor at CU Boulder Law School, says the memo leaves little room for compromise. The guidance says the person must return to their home country to apply, except in extraordinary circumstances.
That's one of the things that's unclear about this.
It seems that even USCIS doesn't know that, and the officers don't know that. They just have this directive from above.
Rockstein expects this guidance to be challenged in court. Until then, he's left with adjusting to the change and doing it fast.
We're working through contacting clients and doing our best to keep them as fully informed as we are in the moment.
Now, according to the American Immigration Council, in the 2023 fiscal year, about 608,000 people received lawful permanent residency by adjusting their status while living in the U.S., while 564,000 arrived from abroad. So, Kyle, that shows you just how many people utilize this process and gives you an idea of how many people may be impacted by this change.
I think a lot of people in the community are very interested in how the process works for people who are trying to follow the rules. So, right, you've got a group of people, Jaleesa, who have gone through the interview and all they're waiting for now is the decision.
Yeah, and that's what attorneys are waiting for as well. They're thinking that immigration may start asking for more documentation to prove if this is an extraordinary circumstance or not, to see if they'll get their green card.
All right, Jaleesa, thank you. A former Mountain View town councilman is on trial this week, accused of shooting a 17-year-old in the face. The victim and his friend were on Brent Metz's property in Evergreen looking for a place to take homecoming photos. September 2024, Metz arrived at the property and confronted the kids who had hopped a fence to look around. They were back in their car writing a note to the property owner asking for permission. Metz's attorneys say he didn't mean to hurt the teenagers, but his gun was defective and went off. The bullet went through the windshield of the teenager's car, hit the victim in the face. Today, a firearms expert who analyzed Metz's gun told the court it couldn't have gone off unless the trigger was pulled.
During your testing and examination of this firearm, were you able to ever cause this pistol to fire without a trigger pull?
No, all the physical testing of the gun required a trigger actuation to get it to actually go through the discharge process to cause all the passive safeties to disengage and initiate a discharge. All other attempts failed.
Defense attorneys are expected to call their own firearms expert. Even if the jury decides that the shooting was an accident, Metz still could be convicted of second-degree assault and get up to 16 years in prison.
Nothing happens without force in D.C. I was not aware of that. I thought you can go and politely ask.
Lauren Boebert ran for Congress proudly proclaiming little knowledge about how it worked. Tonight, she tells me what she has learned in the last 7 years, including something she wishes she didn't know now. Homeowners are getting squeezed on both sides, warned to conserve water to help with the drought, and facing the wrath of an HOA if the green lawn turns brown. That's next. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert has gone from proudly proclaiming her ignorance about how Washington works to now using the levers of power to advance her agenda. Here's how we wrapped up her first extended sit-down here since her first run for Congress 7 years ago.
The last time that you were here, 7 years ago, you did not know a lot about how Congress worked. In fact, that was kind of your calling card, and I think that that helped get you elected because you had this outsider image. I imagine that that led to a steep learning curve when you got there. What is one thing that you wish you had known before you got into Congress? And what is one thing that you wish that you had not learned about Congress once you got there?
Yes. Well, one thing I wish I had known, I guess it's more of the leadership and the party structure, because that's really what makes Congress broken and inefficient. This pay for play and having to raise campaign funds to have a committee seat and all of this. I truly thought that if I went there, I could get a seat on the House Natural Resources Committee because I had a district that had a lot of federal lands and these were huge issues. But then I learned I had to find a donor to write me a big check to get me on that committee. And one thing that I wish I would have never had to learn is that in DC, one of the roles is apparently being the bedroom police, because there are so many misdeeds that happen between members and their offices and their personal lives that we should never have to deal with. And when I have to call on a Republican member to resign and a Democrat member to resign because of their horrendous personal lives and what they're doing with their staff, I mean, that is not what I went to Congress for, but also I'm happy to try to provide justice for the people that they have wronged.
We're out of time. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, thank you for your time. Let's not wait another 7 years.
All right. I'll be
Thank you.
back.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thanks,
Yep.
Kyle.
My full unedited 25-minute conversation with Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is on the next YouTube channel and on 9news.com. Check in with meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen. There are some storms that are trying to get their lives together tonight.
Yeah, we're starting to get some action here across the Denver metro area. We have one severe thunderstorm up in the foothills here, right along Kenosha Pass. That's producing 1-inch hail. And then out in front of it, we've got some big thunderstorms starting to build up in here, right in the heart of the Denver metro area. Let's zoom in there, get a closer look, and we can get a little information. Every once in a while, we'll see a little bit of a magenta or purple color indicating that there's likely some hail falling out of this storm. Right now, it appears to me that that's probably pretty small, like pea-size hail. These cloud tops are not very high. And another thing we don't see here is any lightning strikes hitting the ground. Now, the lightning network will pick up about 99.9% of the lightning bolts. So if there were any in there, we'd be seeing it. But there is some strength showing, at least a strong thunderstorm in the developing phases. So we'll have to watch those thunderstorms very carefully over the next hour and a half, because that's our window where these storms could produce some large damaging hail. We're talking about 1 inch in diameter, about the size of a quarter. Now, tomorrow and Saturday, we'll also be watching the radar very closely because the ingredients are there once again for some strong thunderstorms, if not severe. They'll tail back just a little bit on Sunday, but we'll keep rain chances and thunderstorm chances through about Monday and Tuesday before we change up a little bit here. It looks like we could see the resemblance of our first little summer heat wave coming our way by the end of next week, Kyle.
The grass is not always greener, especially in this drought summer. But what happens when your HOA tells you you gotta keep it green? That's next. Your HOA wants your lawn green. Your municipality wants you to conserve water. So, are you hosed? Our Spencer Soysher looks at one city's solution.
If your neighbor's lawn looks this good and yours looks this bad, yeah, their grass is greener.
In a drought declaration, we're still typically allowing some outdoor watering, just less.
But in Castle Rock, if you've got the brown grass, Soon, nobody can do anything about it. Mark Marlowe is the head of Castle Rock Water, which just issued a drought declaration with voluntary restrictions. And he says they've heard from people confused if they should keep their lawn green or conserve water, worried their HOA will go after them if their lawn is gross.
When we're in a drought declaration, we all want to conserve water for the good of the community, public health and safety, and we want to ensure that we're not working crossways against each other.
So the utility has been working with the city council to pass an ordinance that bars HOAs in metro districts from penalizing people who have a brown lawn during a drought.
I'm not aware of any HOAs enforcing this since we made the drought declaration back on May 19th.
But HOAs here do have lawn rules. Take the Masters Club HOA in Castle Rock, which has rules that say lawns should be kept in good condition and need, quote, regular watering and pruning, though they also have a provision if the city has a drought declaration.
We have not received any complaints to date about that.
The state's HOA Center says it has also not gotten similar complaints, but state law offers some protections, but only during mandatory restriction.
We said, let's just get ahead of it and clarify this before we go into a drought.
So according to a member of the Water Commission I spoke with today, a lot of these HOAs are managed or enforced by non-Castle Rock-based companies who may not know the drought declaration and advisory has been issued. Doing this can also alert them to not go around handing out fines to people who have maybe not the prettiest lawns right now.
So Spencer, we have heard anecdotally, right, that this is happening here and there. They say that they don't have those complaints yet. So this is the part where we say, if you know this happening, tell us.
Yeah, no complaints to the state, no complaints to Castle Rock to prompt this. Why are we doing this? They want to know. They want to know if it's happening early in the year too, right? Like grasses are just starting to show and we're starting to get sun every day. We've had a little rain. Now they want to know.
As a man with a good lawn, I'm just worried that I'm going to be blamed for wasting water when in fact, I'm just really talented.
Shame on you.
Spencer, thank you. Back with your feedback next. All right, we're going to plumb the depths of blue sky for feedback tonight, where Deke wrote in to say Lauren Boebert's going to regret only waiting 7 years to sit down with Kyle. I don't know, I encourage you to watch the entire interview on our YouTube channel or on 9news.com. I thought it was a civilized conversation. Pressed her on some other issues, like why she draws a hard line on things like the Epstein files to protect women and children, yet fraternizes with Donald Trump and people like Matt Gaetz. It's a little bit more of an involved conversation, but I think you might be interested in seeing that. Also on Blue Sky, about our Victor Marks interview yesterday that's breaking the internet. Chris says patience is what makes the difference with that interview. You don't rush through a question checklist. You instead exhaust the line of inquiry to get as close to the truth on the subject as they'll let you. So much is said in that depth. That's another one that I encourage you to watch on the YouTube channel. See you next time.